Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, March 24th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
And I'm Eklund. You're watching the HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time to fill you in on the comings and goings. And at times like this, sometime in the afternoon. Today we're going to be a little bit early. Stuff happened this afternoon. And so here we got a lot to talk about. But Mike, you wanted to launch right into Sidney Crosby and fill in people who didn't see what was going on, fill people in on what's happening here with Sidney Crosby. And
okay. This is Pittsburgh and Ottawa played last night. Ottawa wins. I think it was 2-1 the final score. And I think it was in the first period. Now, I didn't see it live. I saw the replay of it. A two-handed slash by Sidney Crosby to the hand of Mark Mathot, one of the Senators' defensemen. He pulls off his glove, and I mean, I'm not trying to over-exaggerate. It looked like the tip of his finger was hanging on by the skin. It was gushing blood. It was hanging there. The indications after the game is that Mathot will be out for, quote, weeks, unquote. And, of course, as the NHL usually does, there is no not even a hearing for Sidney Crosby on this. If this was Tom Sestito that had slashed Mark Mathot, there would be a 10-game suspension. This is again an example of the star treatment that I despise in the NHL, going back to Wayne Gretzky in 1993, and this is one of the reasons I'm pissed off about it. But Alex Ovechkin getting continually, there have been numerous instances where he should have been suspended, and if he was anybody other than Alex Ovechkin, would have been suspended. And in this instance, Sidney Crosby isn't even going to get a fine. Nothing. Not a thing. And Mathot is a top pairing defenseman with the Ottawa Senators. He is going to be out for weeks. He's the defensive partner of Erik Karlsson. I just think it's ridiculous. There should be some suspension. I don't care if it's Sestito or Steve Ott or Sidney Crosby. You do something like that, and you cause an injury to a player, and you should be. Now, this is the thing. We've always complained about the fact that when a player gets suspended, it's more about the injury than it is the actual infraction. Well, where the hell is this? Mathot's going to be out for a week. Where is the penalty based on the injury? It's nowhere.
I know. I'm trying to find a highlight of it myself right now, and I'm having a tough time finding it for some reason.
The only thing I found, I retweeted earlier this morning a video of Mathot skating to the bench with the grotesque gushing of the blood. It was just, Yeah, I mean, I saw the actual infraction, and it was a two-handed slash by Crosby. And funny thing was, Eugene Melnyk came out after the game, and obviously Eugene Melnyk is never hesitant to make a public statement, and he was saying, that he was, I mean, he was not too. Let's just say he wasn't. He didn't care if it was Sidney Crosby. He was just saying, Sidney Crosby has a reputation of being a whiner, which I don't know if that really goes to this at all. I mean, I don't know. I mean, maybe Melnyk was just upset, and I understand it. But this is an injury.
But I mean that Crosby. I don't think that reputation is always fair with Crosby. But there's no question that he does do what a lot of stars do, which is complain about calls, which, they'll often say they have to because they think they're getting destroyed. So that's a tough one.
Yeah, Melnyk basically, according to the statement, Melnyk doesn't name Crosby, by name, but says, we all know who he is. The guy is a whiner beyond belief, says, and Melnyk went on to say, no matter who it is, he should be suspended. And now we know, it came down a few minutes ago that it is not under review, so he will not be suspended. And the Ottawa Senators, who were, making a charge for first place, although, probably that Montreal back-to-back series last weekend probably ended their chances of hitting first place. But they're in second place in the Atlantic Division. The loss of Mathot will move around their defensive pairings and significantly affect them. He will be out, quote, for weeks, unquote, and that can have a detrimental effect on on the Ottawa Senators. So, I mean, if I was Melnick, I would be extremely upset with this, and obviously it's going to affect his team.
I'm really surprised that the NHL came out. Here it is. We're going to watch it. I think it's pretty gruesome, so I'm going to
Yeah, no, everybody's seen it, so don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. So this is
yeah, it's only a few seconds. So here it goes. It's in the zone here.
Right there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, his
Yeah. Okay. Watch. Yeah. I mean, come on. I mean.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah, I know. I that's hard to argue. And his fingers, tears his finger. So.
Yeah, I mean that's. I don't know. I mean, it's a very sore subject with me, and I honestly penalize players equally, no matter who they are. I don't care if they're a star. If they do something wrong, you penalize them. If it's a guy who's a fourth liner, you penalize him. You give him equal consideration. Roman Polak had never been suspended, had never been fined for a hit. He gets suspended for 2 games for his first infraction. Now, I'm not saying Sidney Crosby's had some previous infractions, but earlier this week, he basically did a cup check on somebody where he stuck the stick between his legs. Okay, where's the penalty here?
Yeah, I mean, Crosby is not a choir boy by any stretch of the imagination. He's and he's known as that. People around the league, he's a feisty player, and he doesn't shy away from it, and it hurts him sometimes because he's gotten hurt as a result of it. But you're not your typical all-star who's going to sit back and not do anything. This is really strange. I'm really surprised at the NHL on this.
I'm not. I honestly, I would have been surprised if they had even fined him. I would have been surprised.
No, I don't know. I wonder if there will be enough outcry that is come out and say that there's no further.
Yeah, no.
I wonder.
Well, I mean,
this is pretty bad. We'll see. I mean, time will tell. But it usually the NHL doesn't. Once they put it away, they put it away.
Yeah, I think this will be put away until the next time that Crosby does something, which may not be for a while. But what I'm saying is, if you were going to send a message that everybody has to be accountable, this was the perfect time. Not in the playoffs, late in the regular.
Carlson, I don't know if you saw Carlson's comments. He came out and said, and he's obviously on the Senators. He said Crosby put his stick in as Method is trying to shoot the puck in, and unfortunately it hit his finger. It turns out worse than most other times. Plays like this happen all the time, but I don't think it was intentional or dirty. That's Eric Carlson, for what it's worth saying it. I think that it does. It is one of those things. It's not an uncommon play.
No,
but at the same time, and it was. I don't know. It's a hard one. It's a really hard one because of who it. Because of the effect it has here. Like you've said before, we talk about the effect often as being behind the injury. So it does have an effect on a major player.
It's strange that it's coming from Carlson, the guy who was injured by Matt Cook a few years ago, same 2 teams, and there was a dispute of whether that was on purpose or not. I mean, obviously basing on Matt Cook's previous record, you would think that would contribute to the possibility that was on purpose. But and I don't even remember whether. I don't think he was suspended for that. I think it was just a.
Yeah, I would.
This is
I'm sure this is being taken up with the league this morning. I asked for.
Well, that was Melnick. Sorry about that. It was a strange thing that came through there, but yeah, that was. I was trying to get Melnick's comments on this, but so far, yeah. I mean that. Sounds like Melnick, like you said, obviously is going to be upset, but he should be upset. It's a major player. I don't know. It's going to be. These things are tough, and if it was a different player, you're right. If this was, even if it was like Chris Letang, it might have been different. Tough to say.
This is a star player.
Yeah.
A star, it should not matter. If Patrick Kane does something, Patrick Kane should be suspended. If Patrick Kane did what Gustav Nyquist did and stuck the stick in the feet of Jared Spurgeon, he should be suspended as much as Nyquist was. That's all I'm saying.
No, I'm with you on that. Now, There was a great save in this game last night to on my Mike Condon in overtime. This was really something else. I don't know if you saw this or not, but it was actually off the end of his stick. So watch this. This is I've made this save as a goalie, I have to say, usually, but I know when I've done it, it was incredibly luck oriented.
Was it on purpose?
No. So Condon, here's Condon. See what you can see. Now it doesn't look like much when you first look at it there, but it is. I mean, it is something. And it's like this is riding up the waffle, up to the end of the stick type thing, and just like off the butt end basically. So that's the difference there between the Penguins getting. Here's a good angle on it. Penguins getting 2 points or 1.
Eugene Melnick and Guy Boucher should thank their lucky stars that they made the move of trading for Condon from Pittsburgh, because that trade saved their season. That trade made it possible for them to make the playoffs, because with Anderson understandably taking time out to take care of his wife while she's going through chemo treatments for cancer. Mike Condon stepped in and played like a number one goaltender and won for them consistently and played very well. So, I mean, the reason that they're second place in the Atlantic Division is, obviously there are other contributors like Hoffman and Stone and a lot of good players having good years, but Mike Condon should get consideration for that particular team, for the Senators, as their MVP because of the job that he did.
Oh, yeah, no question. So we've got some good news as far as things go. I mean, it's just, there's some fun stuff from last night that has to be talked about. First of all, Austin Matthews gets to point number 60, which is, always impressive when a rookie can get to 60 points.
Well, I didn't see whether, and I'm checking as we're talking right now, whether Patrick Laine got any points, because if he did not, let's see here. 2 goals they had, and Patrick Laine did not.
And I think the fact that Austin Matthews has the least frame.
Yeah, Laine had a goal. So right now, Patrick Laine has 34 goals and 61 points. Matthews has 33 goals and 60 points. If they stay that close, I continue to say that Matthews will be Rookie of the Year, because if he's close to a offense-only player like Laine playing with veterans, and Matthews is playing with a couple rookies, I think that's going to be a swaying factor in the Calder voting.
Right. And especially I think if he does indeed get his team into the playoffs, that'll be a big thing too. The Senators and the Avalanche are going to play 2 games in Sweden next year. And, I'm not a really big fan of these regulations games in Europe, I must say, but I get the idea of it. And it's always nice for, obviously on these teams that are Swedish and it's a big ticket thing.
Well, it's funny because I talked to Russ about this morning because the announcement that came out about the regular season games in Europe was hand in hand with the announcement of the 2 games, preseason games in China.
Right.
One in Shanghai, one in Beijing. Yes, I mean, I agree. They haven't done the regular season games in Europe in a few years, but it's understandable. I think they're going to be in Sweden, and those 2 teams, you've got Carlson and you've got Landeskog on the Avalanche and the Senators, so there's a big –
Yeah, who knows about Landeskog on the Avalanche by that point, but yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, probably, but yeah, it could be. But but the thing is that the China games are interesting on the in following with what Rene Fassel said yesterday, because he was throwing out it there that, well, no, you're not sure if you're going to be going to the Olympics in China if you don't go to the one in Korea. Well, this didn't seem to affect this announcement because they're going to China to play games. So a lot of stuff is happening with the whole Olympic situation. It came out yesterday that the IIHF said there's a deadline at the end of April. Bettman came out again and basically said, as of right now, the way things stand, we're not going. And Donald Fear was on Toronto radio and pretty much said in no uncertain terms, the players, they want to go, but they're really subject to what the NHL chooses. I mean, if they,
they no choice.
Yeah. So I mean, honestly, it's in Gary.
And then Stamkos, everybody can want to go, and it's not going to matter. I think that everybody knows that they want to go. It's good the players are coming out and saying it. They should have said it a little bit earlier. I agree with Kevin. They should have been a little bit more adamant about it before this. But yeah, for now, you're nothing.
Well, no, yeah, and it pretty much. I mean, in so many words, Fear essentially said, we have to wait to what the NHL decides to do, and if they decide they don't want to go, I mean, what choice do they really have in terms of honestly, I
just spilled something all over myself. Sorry.
Okay, well, while you're cleaning that up, I'll just say that
I'm fine.
The NHL will probably put in a penalty to teams if players go to the Olympics. If they say we're not going, and Ted Leonsis says I'm going to let Alex Ovechkin go, then Ted Leonsis better open up his checkbook for the tune of maybe $500,000, because I bet you the NHL will make it very painful for teams to let their players go to the Olympics when the NHL says we're not going.
I think it's going to be very hard for anybody but Russia to pull that off anyway. And I think that even Russia, I mean, and if Russia pulls it off, then it also affects, I mean, it could be really bad because it could end up affecting things like the World Cup and down the line. There could be issues.
Well, I mean,
might not invite Russia to the World Cup of Hockey. It's possible that they don't invite them because, that is an NHL event, remember, so there's money there involved.
Yeah, but they're okay.
I really don't think Ovechkin's going to go. I really think that those players who say they're going to go are not going to go. I just feel that I would be shocked if that really. Well, they really want to go there, up on young players anyway. I mean, it's not going to look good to them.
Well, the thing is that, I mean, if you want to start a war between the IIHF and the NHL, I mean, you could if this escalates. Say the NHL says we don't want our players to go. The IIHF says no, let them go. If they want to go, let them go. Then the NHL could say, well, you know what, we're not going to let our players play in the World Championships.
Yeah,
because
there's so many issues here.
Yeah, it could be a war. I mean, probably not going to happen. I think they'll probably all be on the same page one way or the other. But again, I just wish this was over with. I don't think they're going. I think this is a shell game. I don't think the IOC is going to bend over backwards for the NHL. The NHL wants to get the same consideration from the IOC that they give to the NBA, and the IOC clearly doesn't value hockey as much as basketball. So I hope Gary Bettman tells the IOC to go screw them.
I don't think that. I think the NBA is just way cheaper. I mean, you're talking with the NBA, how many players you're talking about versus how many players you have to insure in the NHL. I mean, it's just the
12 players.
Price is incredibly different. I mean, and I think that's the big issue. I mean, you're talking about way more money for the NHL.
I actually think I think it's more. I think it's less the number of players and more the footprint, the ratings, the attention that it brings. The NBA is big all over the world. Hockey is in pockets.
Also, it also happens in the summer games, which is easier.
Yeah.
The EDC. And there's a lot of different things. There's a lot of different aspects to this. How about Leon Draisaitl? Has had 6 straight multi-point games, 13 points in 6 games. He has really come on this year as the second best player on that team, and just without question.
Yeah, well,
and that's surprising.
It is and it isn't. I mean, honestly,
compared to it is in terms of the fact that you had so many talented players on that team being drafted first overall over all the years, and I don't think you would have expected Draisaitl to be better than. I mean, and Hall's not there anymore, granted, but I still think that it is. A couple years ago, if he was a Draisaitl, was going to be the best of that group. I wouldn't have expected it.
Well, I mean, and Draisaitl has played at times with McDavid. They've tried to maybe spread things out a little bit and put him on a different line. But honestly, what you're getting out of, and Eberle wasn't a first overall pick, but what you're getting out of Eberle and what you're getting out of Nugent Hopkins is what you basically have gotten out of them the last few years. Draisaitl, he had that first year where he played 40 games. He was too young. He was too inexperienced. They sent him down. They did not let him finish the season in Edmonton. He went down. He played more. I think he played in the American Hockey League like Puljujärvi is doing this year. Yeah. And he benefited from that and then came back and is much more well-rounded player. Now, it's funny because I've heard people say, well, Puljujärvi is a bust compared to compared to all the top pay, Matthews and Line and Matthew Kachuk. And I'm like, you cannot make judgments on 18, 19-year-olds after 1 year. You got to let them grow. And people were saying they rushed Draisaitl, they ruined Draisaitl. Well, it doesn't look like they ruined him now because he's playing pretty damn well.
Yeah. So we had 11 games last night, or 12 games last night, and the playoff picture is still pretty fuzzy because we had a couple interesting things happen last night. The Predators beating the Flames and the Kings winning kept that hope alive for the LA Kings. But it's still very faint, of course. But the Calgary Flames would have to go into the tank to a degree here. But they do have this kind of schedule that could mean that they end up going to the tank, and the Kings have the kind of schedule that they could get hot on. But it's still, And this was a big win for the Predators. Puts the Predators in a really solid spot.
I mean, the Kings are hanging on by a thread here, and more than anything, what's important here is the Kings to play with a level of desperation that they haven't had in recent weeks. Yeah. I mean, it's not been the fact that the Flames or the Oilers or the Predators have been red hot. It's the fact that the Kings, up until yesterday, lost, I think, 4 of the last 5 games, and we're getting pretty decent goaltending from Jonathan Quick, but we're not getting a lot of offense. And last night they get 5 goals against Winnipeg. Winnipeg is not a playoff team. That's a game they should win. Yes, the Flames are a young team, and it's possible that they could have a little bit of a downturn, and the Kings would have to take advantage of that. But right now, it would take a dramatic change of events for that to happen.
Oh yeah, no, it would. It would for sure. And someone pointed out to me and the Bruins losing last night, of course, is a huge loss. Also keeping the Lightning still subtly alive.
Well,
that's still
it's ironic, like how things have changed in a week and a half. Before the 4-game losing streak, the Bruins were up 6 points on the Leafs. Now the Leafs are 3 points ahead of the Bruins. Boston is only, I believe, 2 points ahead of the Islanders. I'm double checking the standings here.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Boston has 8. Boston has 82. The Islanders have 80. Tampa has 79. The Islanders have 2 games in hand on Boston. Boston is in real trouble. And Bruce Cassidy, after the game yesterday, was making points that right now this team has the core of this team has the last couple years been watching as this team has fallen out of the playoffs in the last couple weeks of the season, and this is deja vu all over again. They were red hot a week and a half ago, and now they've lost 4 in regulation, and they're in deep trouble.
Well, here's the reality. The Bruins from March 15th on have had just horrible seasons the last couple of years. So basically, you go March 15th, 2015, they win 5 of their last 13. Last year, they missed the playoffs by 2 points. Last year, they go 3-7-1, missed the playoffs by 1 point. And this year, since March 15th, they're 0-4. Yep. So, the reality is that, you've got to win those games at that time of the year to be in the playoffs.
And last night, checking in on that game, Boston, in the second period, Boston took the lead 3 times.
Yeah.
Each time within 2 minutes, Tampa tied up the game. They could not hold the lead. Tuukka Rask did not play well. Now, Tuukka Rask played really good in Toronto earlier in the week. They just couldn't score on Frederik Andersen, and that's what cost them in that game. But right now, the thing is, Cassidy made the insinuation, well, there are a lot of players on this team that weren't around last year. But as Russ said, the core players are there. The Krejcis, the Charas, the Bergerons, the Marchands. These guys won Stanley Cups, but they've also been around for 2 collapses. So,
Yeah.
This
year's so crazy different because just from the Canadian perspective, last year no Canadian teams in the Stanley Cup Finals. Right now, 5 in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So they go from no teams in the playoffs to 5 teams in the playoffs right now.
And that's great, but the problem is of those 5 teams, which one is a serious Stanley Cup contender? I would say none. I would say none of them. I don't think Montreal is a serious Stanley Cup contender when they're moving their number 1 center to the wing because he can't play defense.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, I wouldn't say. I don't think there are that. Serious contenders. are mostly in the Metropolitan Division. Really at this point. So yeah, that's kind of, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, real tough. So tonight the Islanders get one of those games in hand back. They have the Penguins, but they have the Penguins. That's not going to be an easy win for the Islanders. So
no, and Yaroslav Halak is supposed to make the start.
Man, he's starting tonight.
Yeah,
Halak is back. And that's interesting because
they have to. I mean, if you start JF Berube against Pittsburgh, you are guaranteeing a loss. Based on the way that he played in the game against Carolina last week. If they play JF Berube and he plays like that, he'll give up double figures in goals. He was that bad that game. Yeah. And that was a costly 2 points because those 2 points put them in a tie with Boston right now if they win that. Yeah. So I mean, right now points are at a premium. You play your best. You ignore the agent problem, you ignore the GM problem, you ignore everything else. You put your best players in there and you try to win. Now that They lost Ryan Strome to a broken wrist. He's out 3 to 6 weeks, so that might hurt that. And he was playing well under Doug Weight. That might hurt the Islanders' chances.
No, it's going to hurt them. I mean, they have the typical thing that we're seeing. They come out with a big win against the Rangers, and they come back with a loss. It's very difficult to come to do. Back-to-backs are really tough on teams right now. There's no question about that. Carolina, it's crazy stat. Carolina, who won again last night and still has a game in hand on where Tampa is essentially. They have a game in hand on Tampa, 2 points back of Tampa, which only puts them 1 point behind the Islanders. I mean, the Hurricanes, beating the Canadiens last night, that was a crazy win for them.
Yeah, right now, if they're 2 points behind the Lightning, they're 5 points behind the Bruins. So they're within striking distance, and they've won a bunch of games. I mean, that's a young.
I don't think anyone thought they would be anywhere close to this. That's why I think it's interesting. I mean, I think that of all the teams, and they're one of the more interesting teams because I think they really were counted out.
I'm not so sure about that. I mean, we said that team is overachieved and has overachieved most of the time with Bill Peters as the coach. The problem was they had that gap of about a month where they didn't have a backup goaltender and they played Cam because Eddie Lack was playing so badly, and they had to play Cam Ward every night, and Cam Ward was, exhausted. I mean, I saw him against, he started to play well. And they're young guys like Sebastian Aho and Teravainen, and veterans like Jordan Stahl and Justin Falk. They're picking up the slack, and they're registering wins. So, they're going to basically need to win out to get back in the race, and that's going to be tough with say 10, 11 games to go 10-0. But you saw it last year with Philadelphia. Anything's possible.
No, anything is possible, and they pull it off, and they have only lost 1 in their last 10. So that's very impressive. That's the bottom line is, they're right in this thing. The Flyers got a big win against the Wild last night. You're still continue to struggle. We kept the Flyers slightly in this as well, but they are now currently 6 points back of Boston, but with a game in hand. So it's tightening. It's all tightening up in there. So they're still Flyers. Flyers still. It's just crazy how this thing's gone down.
But yeah, I was gonna say the funny thing is that the teams that we basically stuck a fork in, they're the body is dead, but the mind doesn't know that the body is dead.
They're going. If you win some games you're not supposed to win, that can put you back into it pretty quickly. But right now the problem is that these teams who have to cross over all of those teams, that's really difficult to do, and that's for Philadelphia to get past Carolina, Tampa, the Islanders, and Boston, that's hard to do, even though it's only 4 points technically. So,
yeah, and there's going to be a lot of games in the next week or so where these teams are facing each other. If you're a team like Toronto or a team like Boston, the one thing that you're looking at and you're praying for are regulation wins. You don't want those 3-point games. You don't want both teams gaining points because that increases the chances of them catching you. I know that Florida plays Toronto. I know that the Islanders and Boston play on Saturday, and like a lot of these games where the two teams are matching up. We're getting into the area where lots of critical games, so it should be very interesting.
It's going to be a great weekend for sure. It always is.
And I will be at the Buffalo-Toronto game, which, in spite of the fact that the Sabres are out of the race, does not matter because every time Toronto comes to Buffalo, it doesn't matter. Buffalo thinks it's Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final and plays out of their you-know-what.
Yeah, all bets are off, and my computer's going crazy right now. Sorry.
Let's look at this. Let's look at the schedule tonight then, because there are 4 games.
Yep.
The biggest one, I think, is, as the game that we were mentioning, was the Islanders in Pittsburgh. Now Pittsburgh is in the second of back-to-back, so they, which for them sometimes means, okay, you're only starting a goaltender who won 2 Stanley Cups instead of one that won 1 Stanley Cup. But they lost to Ottawa yesterday. Flying in, they're playing an Islander team that is rested. So that'll be a challenge for the Penguins. And right now the Penguins are in the thick of the race in the Metro. They're only 2 points behind Washington. Columbus only got one. Columbus got a point in the shootout loss to Washington. And I don't know if you watched any of that game, Mac. That was chess. It was chess on ice. It was just very methodical, very defensive oriented. Bobrovsky and Holtby facing off against each other. It wasn't a particularly exciting game, but I think if those 2 teams meet in the playoffs, that's what it's going to be like.
Yeah. I mean, they are. That was a real test for Columbus to see where they are, and I thought they came through pretty strong.
The other games, Tampa Bay, second of back-to-back in Detroit. Now, here you go. If the Lightning are going to get back in the race, this is an absolute must-win. You must destroy a bottom feeder like Detroit. Just get in there first 5 minutes of the first period and bury them. Give them no hope. And if you let them stick around, then it can be a game. And that we've seen they earlier in the week they lost to Arizona because Arizona was given a chance to breathe. They got the first goal. They stayed in the game, and that was a costly 2 points for Tampa Bay. So they need to beat Detroit and need to jump on them. The other 2 games, Ducks, Jets. I mean, points are important for the Ducks. They're right now in the race in the Pacific. They're trying to catch. They're only 2 points behind San Jose for first place. So is Edmonton. So right now the Pacific is really tight. And honestly, I would like to be in first place in the Pacific if I were. That's going to be a real gem for those teams because you're in first place in the Pacific. You're going to face the second wild card. Or the first wild card, and that could be Nashville or it could be Calgary. And you're talking at least with Calgary is an inexperienced team. So
no, it's a real battle there. Hold on, I'm getting a message from someone here. Sorry about that. I apologize. This is the fun of Mike and I doing the show together. I've got to leave you off for 1 sec, Mike. I'm sorry. This is just give me 1 sec. This could be something.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll just talk about right now. I mean, you look at the race in the East, and right now, I mean, Montreal is at 91. Ottawa wins yesterday. They're at 90. As the tantalizing matchups for the playoffs, Montreal, Toronto. After. The last time those 2 teams met, those 2 storied franchises met in the playoffs was 1979. That was the year that the Habs won the Stanley Cup. In the 100th anniversary of the Maple Leafs, if it was Montreal, Toronto in the first round, I would not hesitate to say that would make the Leaf season. If they, there's been a campaign talking about on social media about the Leafs being quote actually good, and my assertion is that a team actually being good is a team that can win a round in the playoffs. It's great. It's unbelievable that a team that was dead last in the league, that had the first pick in the draft, is probably going to make the playoffs. And I believe Leaf fans and Leaf Nation should be very proud. But the problem is that the sign of a good team is to be able to win in the playoffs. And if they fall out of third place in the Atlantic and win the second wild card, and they have to play Pittsburgh or Washington, I would be shocked if they win more than a game. I think it would be Washington in 5 or Pittsburgh in 5. And there's no shame in that because you're talking about arguably the President's Trophy winner for the second year in a row or a team that won the Stanley Cup last year. So, Mike Babcock and the Leafs and fans should be proud of the fact that they were able to win, to get into the playoffs and compete against those teams. But they're not in the same league right now. If they play Montreal, if they play Ottawa, Toronto has a legitimate chance of beating them and getting past the first round. If they do that, then I would categorize them as, quote, a good team. But right now, if you make the playoffs, I mean, more than half the league makes the playoffs. I don't care if the Leafs have only made it once since 2004, and that was a shortened season. Being good means not just getting in the contest, but winning in the contest. So Toronto, Ottawa, or Toronto, Montreal would be something that I know that, especially the CBC would be very interested in and very hopeful for in terms of the ratings, because last year with no Canadian teams making the playoffs, that was a problem. But in the Metro, you've got Washington at 104 points, Pittsburgh at 102 points, Columbus at 101 points. They're all guaranteed in the playoffs. They have all clinched playoff spots. But right now, I mean, the prize is getting first place in that division, because first place in that division means the second wild card, and that means either Toronto or Boston or possibly the Islanders. The one that would be bad for those teams would be Tampa Bay. If Tampa Bay snuck in and won the second wild card, and it was Pittsburgh or Washington, you're talking about a team that got to the Eastern Conference Final last year, and it'd be a first round matchup. And imagine Steven Stamkos coming back a game or two before the playoffs start. It's very possible.
Can you imagine? I know, that's crazy. There was another actually interesting record last night. Someone pointed out to me that the Maple Leafs have, right? They have is it Nylander who set a point streak for his rookies?
Yeah, there were a whole bunch of records broken yesterday. Marner and Nylander both broke. One was an assist record. One was a consecutive points streak. Matthews is closing in on the rookie record for goals with the Leafs. The rookie record is 34 by Wendell Clark in 1985. Matthews has got 33, so he's more than likely going to break it. The points record is Peter Inachak from the 80s.
Right.
I'm sure you remember. Matthews is probably going to break that. But you've got right now 3 rookies over 50 points. You've got 5. They're the only team in the NHL apparently with 5 players over 50 points. The scoring is not a problem. Defense is the problem. Now, lately, Mike Babcock has gotten that team to buy in and tighten up. And as I was saying while you were away, right now, CBC is salivating at the potential or possibility of an Ottawa-Toronto or a Montreal-Toronto first round.
Oh, yeah.
They would absolutely love that. And I'll tell you right now, if that happens, all bets are off, because I think Toronto could beat either one of those teams. But if they come up against Pittsburgh or Washington in the first round, I don't think they have a legitimate shot to beat those teams. But like I said, they're playing with house money. Everything right now with the Maple Leafs is gravy. Yeah.
No, really, and that would be really interesting to see. Like I obviously Montreal Toronto would be the dream, but Ottawa Toronto is great as well. Ottawa Montreal is great as well. I don't count Toronto out in winning the division. It's possible. They're playing as well as they're playing right now. They are by far the most consistent team in that division.
Yeah, but let's calm down, please.
No, they just are.
Okay.
They are the most consistent team in the Atlantic. No questions asked. Okay, so the Golden Knights have made a multi-year partnership with the Cirque du Soleil. I'm trying, no word yet on exactly what this is about, but maybe that's how they're going to get their extra players.
Does that mean that George McPhee is going to be hanging from a rope, swinging around?
That's what I'm thinking. This is a really good place to find French Canadian players, by the way. So it's possible because I know Cirque du Soleil is a French Canadian group. So then obviously both are there. I'm not quite sure what that partnership entails. I don't remember an NHL team ever having the guts to make a deal with a circus.
The ceremonial first puck will be dropped from a woman spinning down from the clock.
Exactly.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it is.
Exactly. And maybe they'll help them with their stretching exercises. I mean, the Cirque du Soleil people are crazy flexible. Anything's possible. But I'm just trying to think what the partnership exactly would be. You think about it. If any other team in the NHL deal with the circus, news go. I'm just saying.
I mean, if you're talking about a circus, I mean, the circus would be a perfect tandem for the Montreal Canadiens.
Or, many teams, of course, would love it. But, I mean, they would all get, it would just be funny in all ways. And, I don't know if you saw Mario Lemieux finally came out and said he doesn't care about Hosang wearing number 66.
It was a complete non-issue. Okay, Mario Lemieux is one of the greatest players that ever played the game, no doubt whatsoever. But like I said, I don't agree with Gretzky's number being retired. I don't think if teams individually want to retire players' numbers, fine. But the only one I agree with is the Jackie Robinson acknowledgement in Major League Baseball because he was a trend-setting player. Gretzky was arguably the best player of all time. That doesn't mean his number should not be circulated. If anything, I would want other players to wear 99 because that shows the influence of Gretzky.
I agree with you. I agree that other players wearing 99 should influence Gretzky, but I don't agree with you at all that Gretzky's number shouldn't have been retired. We talked about this already. We had this debate, but I just think that's my thing. I don't know. I think Gretzky is such a transformative player, and there are probably 6 teams in the NHL right now because of Wayne Gretzky existing. So that's the reality of it. Stamkos did come out and say yesterday, and then had an interesting quote beyond the Olympics. He actually did talk about his current situation. He said, if I know I can't play to the ability and would be a liability out there because I can't go to a certain movement or this movement is painful, so I'll shy away from that. It's not fair to my teammates. It's not fair to myself to go out in that situation. So, yeah, obviously Stamkos, and we know Stamkos is no one more competitive than Stamkos. So if he's saying that, he's definitely still in pain. And my question is though, that with the Lightning playing so well last night, maybe this came out before the Lightning's game. I think it's good. I mean, I think the Lightning now can look at this thing like, okay, Stamkos is not coming back, and we're not waiting for him to come back anymore. And not that the Lightning need any extra motivation to win games because they have to win every game pretty much, but this is at least something that if I'm on that team, I can sit there and say these look in that round in that locker room and say these are the guys that are going to win or lose it. This is it.
I mean, maybe subconsciously they were hanging on the fact that maybe he would come back, and and
I think they were, and I because it really was talked about a ton this year. So,
but the thing is here, and like I said yesterday, they were in the middle of a winning streak, that got them back in the playoff race before the deadline, and Steve Yzerman decided that there was a bigger benefit for the team going forward to clear out the salaries of Filppula and clear out Brian Boyle and get a return for him, and being able to pay bonuses this year instead of making the playoffs. That was his determination. Now, he didn't expect Tyler Johnson and Nemestikov to get hurt, but you know what? You don't give up 2 centers when Steven Stamkos has been out all year, unless you were ready to say, we're done, we're selling, we're not in it. And then all of a sudden, after the deadline, they started playing really well and they got back into it. And then Tyler Johnson and Nemestikov got hurt, and that really has slowed their progress. Now, they're only 3 points out, and if Boston keeps falling and it's a battle between the Islanders and Tampa for that wild card spot and they get in, that's great. But I think Yzerman in the short term hurt his chances of getting in the playoffs this year by making those deals.
Right. No, you're right. All right. Finally, I want to talk about the projected standings for a second because I was getting a lot of heat this morning because I said I went 8-4 when I actually went 7-5. I really appreciate how many thousands of people seem to care about this. But I said I went 8-4 because I was going off of what I had written in what I had on my computer. When in actuality, I did write a wrong game on there. So again, I will take the 7-5, even though we're beating the Penguins. And you can tell, I can prove that to you by the fact that simply when you look at the standings today, the Ottawa Senators' standings didn't change from yesterday based on the fact that they won. If they were supposed to lose, they should have changed, but they didn't. So they're in the same place. But for what it's worth, I will still take it. I'm 7-5. That's fine. I wrote it the wrong way on there, but I'm going off the other thing. So there you have it. And people, I really appreciate thousands of. I mean, literally, it's crazy.
They got money on it, Zach. They're betting.
So, and I'm really sorry. Then I will try to be more careful. Literally, I put that up at 6:45 last night. My son had a crazy thing, and I was realizing that the games were about to start in 15 minutes. So I went and quickly looked on as fast as I could, put everything up, and I reversed it because I think Pittsburgh probably should have. I probably would have picked. My head would have picked Pittsburgh over Ottawa. But actually, the computer did pick Ottawa over Pittsburgh, so there you go.
This has nothing to do with your the Buzztron 9000 and your selections here. But I'll just because you're doing this as an informative exercise, and it's interesting, definitely. But I will just tell you that back in my 20s we used to bet bet football. There were 900 numbers that people used to call up and pay like $10, and the guy would and he would say, "I'm going to give you the 5-star special. Call between 6 and 9 and get the game for Monday." So my friend calls and I call separate calls, and it was a game between say Houston and Buffalo. My friend got Houston, I got Buffalo. Okay. So basically. I'm right on everything because he's picking both sides.
Very nice.
Yes.
Very, very nice.
You're not doing people. It was just an error. Sorry.
It was just an error. It makes me 7-5. I'll take it over being 8-4. I've had a lot of losing nights lately, so I was happy that I was 8-4. But I get it. But I can tell you, as you can see, the Penguins went down despite winning last night because they were supposed to win. They were supposed to get a. It's just funny. Anyway, they were supposed to win. It's just messed up. They were supposed to get 2 points.
Yeah, just for
I'm out. I'm confused. It's done. They'll have more for you later today.
Let's do the NHL Draft Lottery Simulator.
Please. That would be great. Here we go. Come on. 1 second. I had it all day. I had it staring right at me, and I just moved it. Of course, just now. It's coming up in a second.
Okay. While you're getting it there, I'm getting the sound effects ready because everybody loves.
Okay. All right, here we go.
There you go.
Yeah, lottery simulator. Here. All right. The winner is the Colorado Avalanche again, winning their second in a row. After no wins at all year. Next up, we have the Arizona Coyotes. Wow, going to whatever it's done. And finally, you get the Vancouver Canucks slipping up a little bit. That's all right. That's directly. Why is that funny? That is directly the result of. That's the closest we've had to actually how it should be, I think. But yes, that's all right. So this would give the Vegas Knights the 4th pick. Since we know they don't pick 3rd, technically they pick between the 2nd and the 3rd pick, which is not considered 3rd for some reason. It's just between 2nd and 3rd. That way the people who have the 3rd pick can say they have the 3rd pick overall.
No, it's the odds. They have the odds between the 2nd and 4th. They have I think it's 15%. That's what it is. They don't have a
plan. They pick 3rd. I mean, right now, like so for someone to sit there and say they have the 3rd, anyway. Regardless,
they have the 3rd highest odds, is what they have.
Right, they have the 3rd highest odds.
There you go. But they don't have
whatever.
Yeah,
whatever they have. They have only won this one, so we'll see what happens. Thanks to Mike for all your hard work. Thanks to everybody for visiting Hockey Buzz and supporting us at hockey at patreon.com/hockey. Look for some interesting things next week. We'll have some prizes for you. It's going to be kind of fun. Remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey. We will talk to you on Monday. Have fun. Have a good weekend, guys.